Have you been wondering why you tend to be attracted to a specific kind of person with certain personality traits over and over? Or why you tend to engage in very similar behaviors in most of your relationships, even though sometimes, they actually don't work? Well, this video might be able to answer some of these questions. It's not news that both genetics and the environment we were raised in have a huge influence on who we become and how we behave. But there's something even more interesting that research showed. It's actually during the first 2 years of our life and through the relationship with our mother or primary caregiver that we start developing our core beliefs about ourselves and the world. So depending on the relationship we actually built with our mom during those 2 years, we develop different kind of attachment styles. This attachment style then defines the way we behave in relationships in our adulthood life. There's 3 main attachment styles. The first one is called the secure attachment. And the reason why it's called that way is that the mother's behavior is perceived by the child as constantly caring, affectionate, and loving. The child feels safe and loved, and they internalize the beliefs that they're worthy of love, the world is a safe place to explore, and people are fundamentally good and trustworthy. But what happens then is that in their adult life, these people are actually willing to engage into relationships because they feel confident and secure about themselves. They build a positive view of themselves and of others. So they tend to trust people. And because of that, they actually usually engage in very healthy and fulfilling relationships. The second attachment style is called the anxious attachment. This one is developed when the mother's behavior is perceived by the child as inconsistent. So in this scenario, the mother will be loving and caring at some point, but at other times she will be distant, cold, and quite dismissive of the child. So the child gets really confused and can't quite understand whether they're worthy of love and people can be trusted or not. And in order to try to explain the change in mother's behavior, what they do is they actually blame themselves. Those times that she acts cold and dismissive is probably because there's something wrong with me or I'm doing something wrong. So they grow up with quite a negative or confused view of themselves and a very confused views of whether other people can be trusted or not. These people tend to engage in relationships where the other person actually sends them the same message that mom has sent them when they were little. So they engage in relationships with people that tend to be cold and dismissive at some point and warm and affectionate at another point. That leads that person to actually get into this vicious cycle where they keep looking for approval from their partner to feel good about themselves. And when this doesn't happen, they get anxious and they start doubting themselves. So they get needy and clingy towards their partner, which pushes that partner far away. And then these two people get into this vicious cycle where one person keeps looking for love and affection and the other person keeps feeling oppressed and runs away. And that makes that person looking for love even more anxious. And it's really hard to get out of this cycle. So the relationship of these individuals tend to be quite chaotic and quite unhealthy. The third attachment type is the avoidant attachment. And that is developed when the mother's behavior is perceived by the child as completely dismissive. In this scenario, the mother acts cold and distant and is not affectionate and loving. And she's not able to fulfill the child's needs. The child starts to internalize the core beliefs that they're unworthy of love and that people are not to be trusted. The child also learns that the only way to survive in this world is to take care of themselves. So these people tend to become really independent and autonomous. And also, they tend to be quite skeptical of other people because as mom did when they were little, other people are probably going to hurt them and they're not going to be able to love them and give them what they need. In the future, these people tend to be attracted to those that don't really want to get involved in deep connections because they're scared of that connection, or they actually tend to avoid relationships altogether. Problem is, we all long for love and affection, and we all need relationships to thrive in our life. So in the long term, these people tend to feel a void, but they usually don't know where that void is coming from. And so it's really hard to live a fulfilling life. And it's obviously really hard to create healthy and fulfilling relationships. So why is this information extremely valuable, because once you actually identify your attachment style, then you become aware of why you tend to be attracted to a specific kind of person and why you behave like you do in your relationships. And that is what's going to allow you to go back and revisit your past and reconstruct those core beliefs into new ones and more constructive ones. Do you want to identify your attachment styles so you can finally get rid of those destructive core beliefs and create new positive ones that will allow you to feel confident, secure, and to engage in positive, healthy, happy relationships? Contact me and we can book your first free taster session as soon as possible.